Okay, we enter part 3 here. Sorry about that. It seemed like I ran out of space and I knew I wasn't going to be able to get here to the end. So this one's going to be a short one here too to get to the end of part 1 of the whole series. And then in your top left hand corner will also be the next one and we'll continue from there. It gets pretty interesting. Stick with me. So we just talked about how M.L. Essen, as an archaeologist, has gotten into this and done a lot of research and found that the Turks were also using this symbol as a state flag around 2000 BC in Middle and Central Asia. So it comes from there, so that symbol was used in that area. But it's also a sign of work of the Huns. Additionally, we see Cuneian crescent star motifs and Guturk state coins in modern day Mongolia, an old Proto-Turkish region. The state flag features 2 pillars and a Cunei sign. So you can tell this guy is extremely pro-Turkish because he keeps talking Proto-Turkish instead of ancient Anatolians. Proto-Turkish Cunei and Gobekli Tepe's sun-moon signs, though, are not just similar, they're exactly the same. On both symbols, we see a cavity at the center of the sun symbol. It's such a common repeated description that we can't say it's a coincidence. According to MLS, the cavity center signifies a luminous side of nature. It describes the coming of spring. It describes the rebirth of nature and fertility as well. Here are some various symbols where you can see this situation, but notice how it's a spot on top of a cradle. In other situations, like in your far right, you'll see it actually done as a wheel, and that's the sun's wheel in a zodiac situation. And taken in later times, a little bit esoterically different than in the oldest of times, as I showed you, and how things spread and change just a little bit and what their meanings, but also sometimes there's subtle differences in these and people don't catch the meaning either. Like the third one across, or this one here, denoting still the sun, but note that that's a star. And that shows you that they know that the sun is a star. In fact, the Sumerians actually said that the stars in our sky are just like our sun, but as a torch in the distance, far, far away. And that's kind of true. Wow. And also later people started thinking, well, the planets are like suns that are far away moving around, and those are the gods and stuff. But they're actually not a sun. They're a planet. And so in our modern religion, we're actually back to sun worship with Jesus, and it goes all back in that. That's kind of how that works in a gist. Bottom left of your picture right now, as we bring it up, is a 4-pointed star that goes along with this. And this is said to have worked with Inanna, but during that time she was associated with fertility and the rites of spring and the run of the year. Like we would say if Jesus does exactly with December 25th in our declamation there, they were hearkening more on the spring situation because here comes everything. Much like Egypt did, which was later in the year because theirs came off a Nile flood that ran from the other way. And so they had a little bit different season going on here. But you can see the sun symbology cradled. Here it looks like a little ring of pearls around one. Then you see a cross, which is also very telling. And next to it again, another symbology of a 4-pointed cross. So a lot of these are 4-pointed cross, but this looks just like that sun symbology that we see in ancient Egypt, where it's cradled exactly the same way, and it's the sun cradled in its solar boat. And I've shown you in the ideals of the earliest Europeans how they had something called a Nebra star disk, Nebra sky disk. And on that they have a solar boat crescented out like this situation going on and declamations. And people said, oh, this is just kind of fancy things. When people look into that, it has a lot of connections that go with it. Check out my video. Here's another 4-pointed star, but look, it's got the other points on it. So that's just the same thing as when you have a wagon wheel. Well, no, the wagon wheel is running one single through and then a crisscross behind it. but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's the same. 4 and divided by 2. Take a star and twist it. Take a picture and twist it. Take a picture and you get an 8-pointed star, don't you? You take triangles and put them double over each other and get a 6-pointed star. Dr. Kathy Burns refers to the crescent star motif as a fertility symbol. In her study, The Hidden Secrets of Eastern Star, similar crescent star motifs can be seen in Aphrodite's temple images and on ancient Cyprus coins. As it is well known, Aphrodite was the Greek goddess of love, beauty, and procreation and fertility. In Greek mythology, she corresponds directly with Sumerian goddess Inanna, as I've said. Additionally, one of the symbols of Inanna was also the crescent star. Hittites saw this as a sign of rebirth, and again we have a connection here. All of these people we're talking about have Aryan connections, and the people and the heralding of civilization. What we call Proto-Europeans now, but from earlier waves than people want to give credit for. We'll use the ancient name that worked from before, that actually was spoken by Herodotus and Darius of the Persians and others of the time. And up until World War II was fantastic to use. Lakota Indians use the crescent star symbol for defining the solar eclipse, and of course the Indians may have connections, well, do have connections to Proto-Europeans before they ever went in the New World, and a lot of people believe that they had connections then and after. B.G. Sithart's comment about sun-moon images relates that in that he believes the sun-moon symbols found in the center pillar in Temple D describe a solar eclipse. It's likely that the crescent star sign then symbolizes rebirth of nature. If so, the sun-moon motif on the Gobekli Tepe pillar might also symbolize the beginning of spring, the time of the equinox, and the rebirth of nature and earth. Gobekli Tepe is one of the most important archaeological discoveries of our time and continues to defy explanation, but further research into what might be the first temple in the world, our earliest known temple so far, was made by man, and it may reveal more about Neolithic understanding and may deliver a message to us from the ancient past. We're going to go on to part 2 now, and it'll show up in your up left-hand corner. But before we go, this crescent sign is meaning one thing in the ancients, and then as it splits, it gets to be known as more things. And as that fractionates and people start incorporating other deities for other aspects of nature and animalistic things, we developed, before the time we're talking about, a whole pantheon of gods, some of which rode on into the modern day, some of which were named after people who were well known in the community that had to go on with it, and with that name they keep the heritage, and with that too, passed down past that point, these people keeping it sacred herald another person as being like that person, another image, another reflection of. And it continues and goes through time. Later you see the same imagery hooked up to a goddess that by that time she has a hell of a lot of things hooked up to her, but Inanna's hook up with it is with the sacred marriage of Dumuzi. And if you've read the tales or even seen my videos about it, it's the rites of spring, and he dies and she brings him back, and then her lament for that, and she gets to spend half the year with him and half the year back, and in that back and forth waxing and waning, that's the reason for the seasons of the year. When she shows up, the flowers bloom. There's a lot put on that woman from a long, long time ago, but it still goes on to this day in our hearts. Women make the flowers grow and make the world go round. In a man's eyes, in a woman's, it's exactly the other. And then there we're back to that handshake. You see, because those H pillars that they talked about, and how it looks like two people reaching their hands out to each other, and the rite that we're talking about of is sacred marriage. Whenever you do that, some of these people were sacredly kept and deified for all time, and all of a sudden you could become one of these Gobekli Tepe pillars that we're talking about as being one of the gods. We're not sure what that all hooks up to, but it still goes on to this day, actually. Though in paganism, for pagan actually just means agriculturist. Yeah, seriously. So does Ethiopian too. So it never really had a connotation like it did before, or it does now, in the way that we try to currently look at it. But you notice that some of these people, whenever they get to be put into a pillar, somehow those people are pillars of the community. And still to this day, there's a symbology kept with that idea when people put a sacred marriage into rite and make everything happen, knowing that you're going to have children and keep that cycle spinning and going, that you become pillars of the community. And the woman suddenly changes her life, if any of you have been through it, from a girl to a woman. And it's a radical change when you become a mother. All of a sudden, the goddess of love could become a goddess of war if you don't watch out. Yeah, and so that symbology in Venus and Mars and how it all works together work quite well. Again, I apologize for the short one on this one and the one before, because easily they could be put together. I actually knew it would fit in the normal 40-minute timeline, even if I couldn't shut up. But it clicked off on its own here and ran out of space because I have other vids and stuff that's on it, and I guess it said, what the hell? So I uploaded before I did that, and I'm going to do that again before I start the next one, so we won't have a half clip again next time. Top left hand corner, and we'll go on to the part, it's our part 4, but part 2 of this revealing sacred symbology shown in Gobekli Tepe and celestial connections to marriage. Peace.